the board. Yeah, or George is here at least.
Good evening and welcome to the May 5th Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I'll start with calling the meeting to order and do roll call. Chrissy, can you do the roll?
Scott Allen.
Here.
Casey Sampson.
Present.
Nicole Wethington. Here. George Piper. Scott Sewell.
All right, we have one of the items on the business today is election of officers. With George being absent and us being down a member of the board or the commission, is there any opposition to holding over until we have a full commission? Is there any opposition to that?
No.
Okay, so we're going to table that to the next meeting. Having no old business in front of the commission, we'll move to new business, which is a COA for Ms. Dempster at 116 North Lebanon Street. We'll hear from staff first.
Good evening, Commission. The CoA application in front of you tonight is, as Casey mentioned, Stacy Dempster, the Merle Norman Building at 116 North Lebanon Street. The property is zoned central business, and this property has been before the Historic Preservation Commission prior for a staircase addition on the south side of the building, which is complete. The building is contributing, which is a building less than 50 years old and which is compatible with its historic surroundings, or a building which is over 40 years old and whose historic character remains but does not rise to the level of notable or outstanding. This building is in the National Register of Historic Places Historic District. Tonight, the application for certificate of appropriateness is for paint, awning, and windows. The applicant is seeking approval to repaint the building in tones of dark gray, light gray, and black accents. The existing building facade has been painted previously. The current gray storefront will remain the same. A light gray will be painted on the second floor east-facing wall that is currently off-white. Above the windows will be a dark gray trimmed in black. The purple collar on the south-facing wall will be a dark gray. And I will show some pictures after I work my way through the staff report here. The awnings are black rounded dome-style canvas awnings over the three east-facing upper floor windows with scalloped valances, and also above the door at the top of the new stairs. A black traditional style canvas awning with scalloped valance over the first floor storefront is also proposed. New second floor windows are proposed to replace the existing replacement windows. There are a total of 6 new windows, 3 windows on the east facing wall, 2 windows on the south facing wall, and 1 window on the east facing wall. The windows are a fiberglass thermal pane Pella, 32 by 63 with no grills. The proposed windows are from the Pella Impervia window line. These windows are a commercial grade fiberglass. The color is a powder coat finish. The applicant is proposing black in color. Staff recommendation. This application reflects a commitment the current owner has in activating the second floor space and the overall investment into maintaining the structure. Staff feels the color palette the applicant is working within is acceptable. The windows being proposed are an acceptable alternative from the typical commercial grade windows based on the research conducted by staff. Although dome-shaped awnings are not encouraged for first floor use, staff feels with the arched window opening on the second floor space of this building, the rounded dome awning fits well into the space and complements the architecture. Dark colored awnings are appropriate. Staff feels the components in this application are appropriate and recommends approval of the COA as submitted. Let me give you just a couple elevations here. Here is an elevation showing the awnings installed onto the building. You can see the dome-shaped awnings that fit nicely into the arch of those second floor windows. If you look to the just to the, I suppose, the north of the Merle Norman building. You can see that arch is still in those windows, and that is exactly what those windows, current windows in the Merle Norman building look like. So those are consistent to what you see there with that yellow arch. The black awning, arch awning just covers that yellow up. And then the storefront awning there on the first floor. You probably saw this in your packet, but this is the cut sheet for the Impervia line of Pella Windows. From the research that I did, this seems like a really good alternative to the metal storefront windows that we typically see, the wood aluminum clad windows. In fact, I think these windows will probably last longer than what the aluminum clad windows will last. The color is, being a baked in color, powder coat, it's, going to last the test of, withstand the test of time. So, it's kind of a new window that's being proposed into our district, but these windows are being installed in commercial buildings and historic districts throughout the country at this point. So it is something that has been accepted. Some of the other things that I tried to scan in, it just wouldn't come up. The color palette. I do have I can grab it if you want to see it, but the samples from the color line she's using, but I tried to scan it in, even on color, because they're black and white samples, it basically came in as a black and white scan, so it just wasn't worth putting in there. So, like I say, I do have those, I can grab them if you need them. So that's all I have as far as staff report. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, and the applicant is here tonight.
Okay, any questions for staff? Nope. Derek, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just clarify what makes this new window different for those that may be watching at home than windows in the past that have been approved?
Yeah, sure. Typically, as I mentioned, windows that we have approved in the past are a wood frame with typically an aluminum wrapping around that wood. So we haven't necessarily got into any new wooden windows that constantly have to be painted and upkept. So the aluminum cladding to the wood window allows for easier maintenance. With aluminum is typically associated with a commercial grade window. So the fiberglass window is basically, for lack of a better term, kind of a hollow core frame, but made of fiberglass. And fiberglass is extremely durable and strong, and the color itself is baked into that material. So a little bit different. It's more one-piece window, I suppose, when you start talking about the construction, versus a wood aluminum clad window, which is again wood wrapped in aluminum. So that's more of a two-piece. The window that I certainly wouldn't accept any proposals for is a vinyl window. Vinyl windows are typically associated with residential construction, but with the fiberglass being installed in commercial buildings, that's why I felt comfortable presenting this tonight, because it is being accepted in the industry as more of a commercial grade window, and I think that's kind of what we've aimed for in these applications and with this commission, commercial grade products, quality products, and I feel like that fiberglass meets those standards.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the board? Would the applicant like to speak on anything else? I don't think so. Don't think it's needed. Was seeing any other discussion on the application as submitted? The one question I did have on the window, that is a rectangular window, correct? Okay, it's not shaping that. Okay, which will be hidden by the awning anyways, but.
I did bring, I met with Lafayette.
Would you, sorry.
I'm loud, I'm not loud. I met with a Lafayette awning company, and they actually gave me some samples, and they told me the color that I picked, black, won't fade. They said it's a great color, and then I'm gonna have it trimmed in a light gray, so it's really gonna look classy.
You said it won't fade? Is that what you said?
Yeah, they said that it lasts a long time. It won't fade like a lot of the other awnings you see around downtown that they get kind of dingy looking.
Sure.
So, it's going to be nice. But currently, the windows that are upstairs on the three front, they're vinyl. So we're actually going to upgrade it. Of course, we're not replacing it with vinyl. We're going to replace it with fiberglass. And the windows steam up right now, so that indicates to me that they need replaced.
Sure.
There's moisture being let in, so I thought the best thing for that building was to replace all the windows and make them all the same.
I think that's wonderful. Moisture inside of a building is never a good thing.
What's that?
I said moisture inside of a building is
Yeah.
never a good thing, especially in our
Yeah.
old buildings downtown.
Yeah, it's been sitting empty for, a long time, so
Well,
there's a lot of things that.
You can see
happen.
that you've brought a lot of life to that building, so
Thank you.
it looks wonderful. And with that, I will make a motion to approve the COA as submitted.
Make a motion to approve the COA.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
All right, moving right along, we are, I think, into other business here, which was, clicked too many buttons. Thank you, save me. We have other business, a staff-issued COA report, if any.
There are no staff issues COAs since the last meeting.
Excellent. We'll move into then the updated rating survey and district map approval.
Yeah, so last year we had some internal conversation and felt like it was time to update our map and the rating survey with all of the facade improvements that have been done on the square. Honestly, we thought some of them were overrated from the get-go when we first formed this commission. So we hired RQAW, who are a group of historic architects, one of the firms that we've done some work with, so they're very familiar with this kind of stuff. They took a look at the district, did a complete new rating survey. A handful of buildings that have gone through a facade restoration were upgraded from non-contributing to contributing. We didn't really have anything that was downgraded in the rating survey. The rating survey the new rating survey, does a little bit deeper dive into the presentation of the building. So it talks about the architectural style of the building, better description of past occupants. So it's just a little bit more detailed than the original rating survey. And then the district map reflects those changes from the buildings that have been upgraded. But it also includes the buildings that we have approved for demolition, and it marks those on the new map. So the map and the rating survey are probably one of those documents that you hear planning people talk about. That's a living, breathing document that will change over time. And as we work our way through the history of this commission, from time to time, once every 5 years or so, we will update these maps and surveys just to make sure that we are current and staying with the times. So that's kind of what I'm proposing tonight. I was hoping that if you had any comments or questions, I could gather those this evening. Ultimately, these will be taken to the City Council for adoption into the original formation ordinance for the district.
Okay, any questions for staff? Nope. Okay, so would you like a motion to approve these then? Any discussion further on the rating survey and the district map? We're taking a look at it. With that, I will make a motion to approve the updated rating survey and district map as presented this evening.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Okay?
Next, we are moving to discussion the process of approving temporary art in the district.
Yep, so, I do apologize if We haven't followed the protocol of temporary art set forth. I know the Heart of Lebanon last year came for approval for the pinwheels in the pocket park. As we moved through the year last year, there was a meeting, conversation that I would swear that we had. I can't find it recorded anywhere. Missy Krulik with the Heart of Lebanon interpreted it the same way I did. And we both interpreted that temporary art was outside of the requirements for a COA. So that's why temporary art started showing up this year without being presented to the commission. With some conversation and explanations, I felt like it was probably something that we needed to define publicly so that we can move forward and make sure that we stay consistent with anyone who wishes to do these type of installations. So tonight, I'm just hoping to kind of start those conversations to see what the expectations look like from you all, so I can form some sort of policy moving forward through this year, so we have something ready to go for next year, or as soon as we get it in place. So, you know, what I'm hoping for is, it's, you know, something I've given a lot of thought to, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'm hoping for some sort of staff approvals so that when we get these type of applications, staff can define with the applicant by way of permit or whatever the case is what temporary means. That was one of the questions. Well, we don't even define what temporary is, and we don't. So is temporary 4 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? What is it? Is temporary the way something is installed as well? If it's not permanently installed to a building, you know, is that temporary? If it is installed, if it is secured to a building, does that move past temporary? You know, those are the kind of things that I'd like to define. But at the same time, as I mentioned, I'd like to make sure that we streamline this process so that every time somebody wants to put out a butterfly bench or whatever the case is, it's not something that we have to delay, come to a meeting, present renderings, that sort of thing. You know, for the installations for the Heart of Lebanon specifically, those are intended to be temporary. They are for the summer season. I believe this year's theme is, Patrick is here tonight. Missy wasn't able to be here. She's an IU graduation. But I believe the theme is something geared towards transformation. Is that right?
Metamorphosis, is that correct?
Yeah, metamorphosis. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So, you know, caterpillars turning into butterflies. So, old infrastructure, old buildings blossoming in back to a robust district and usable space. So, that's kind of why they chose what you're seeing pop up, the butterflies. So you saw the butterflies in the Bradford pear tree and the pocket park. You really have to look for those now because, you know, the leaves have bloomed on the tree and they kind of hide that. I know the wind wasn't very friendly to that installation. You have the butterfly artwork that has popped up on the Carmack, the north-facing wall of the old Booney's pub, Carmack pub these days. And I believe they're close to having some bollard wraps installed that look like caterpillars. So that's what you're going to see popping up this year. And again, you know, it's from April to September. Missy and I have already had those conversations, so they are being respectful to the idea of temporary. But moving forward, just so staff's on the same page, applicants are on the same page, and I'm meeting all of your expectations, I'd like to hear your input so that I can start to craft something and get it presented and get it in place. Or nothing in place. I don't know. I mean, that's, you know, kind of, I guess, what we're here to talk about. Because the CoA language certainly doesn't address temporary art. It addresses, you know, all sorts of things. I can read through those. I'm sure you've already read it. But if you feel like it needs some sort of approval, that's what I want to hear, so that I can make sure that we're moving forward in the right direction.
I think the purview of this commission is clear that hardscape is directly within the purview of this commission, such as the design of a bollard or the design of a bench or the like. At the same time, temporary, I think, is the hang-up for me. because what is temporary? You know, I understand that 6 months worth of time from April to September, or any other duration of multiple months is still temporary in the long term of life expectancy of our downtown, but that's still a significant amount of time. To me, personally, I think of temporary as 30 days, 45 days, something that's truly a short amount of time, or something that's for an event, a temporary closure for some type of event that's downtown, or festival, something of the like. So I think the first thing we need to do is decide on what's temporary. And then, like you had said, what items are what downtown. So we have certain signage requirements that are required, both from our commission and other commissions. But for a banner to be displayed on the side of a building, whether that be non-advertisement for a building or a business, or like the one that's up currently, that is truly art. But then I think you have to define what is art. It has to be non-commercial. So we would have to have some type of language in there, or otherwise a business could potentially use that same process of temporarily putting up a banner on the side of their building. And that may go over other areas into advertising, but for our commission, we need to decide what those are. It's still within the district. So definitions, I think before we can start legislating or deciding what we need to do, we need to make the definitions first.
Sure. And it's something, that you're right, Casey, it is addressed in several different corners of documents that we have and adopted in the city right now, specifically the Unified Development Ordinance. We start talking about, temporary signage, what's allowed on temporary signage, what's allowed on light post banners. And you're right, copy is not allowed. Logos, artwork, that sort of thing is encouraged. It's not, and this is not a unique conversation to the historic district. Public art is now being discussed citywide, and internally here in the building, we talk about it pretty extensively. And for me, I've certainly encouraged public art to be throughout the community and not concentrated, within the square. I've certainly toured enough of these, historic squares and areas these days, and some of them handle it very well, some of them don't, in my opinion. Some of them are, from my early research, some of them don't regulate it at all. They don't want to mess with it. They basically let it default to kind of what the local ordinance for the district would be. And some of them do regulate it. Some of them, have applications that groups come in front of a city board and say, okay, here's our temporary art plan for the year, and they line it out for the year, and it's one approval. So it takes a little bit more organization on the applicant. But the temporary art idea needs to be spread out, needs to be throughout the whole community. So these are conversations that we're also having in trying to figure out, how do we deal with, the artwork that we want to install on the new trail here on Southeast Street, sculptures, whatever that looks like. And the other thing is to define, what art is. I think we're pretty focused right now on art being on a canvas, but it doesn't have to necessarily be on a canvas. It can be a sculpture, it can be something whimsical, it can be, butterflies in a tree, it can be the pinwheels. So it's something just relatively new to the city, not necessarily relatively new to other corners of the country, but it is something that just the idea has never really been brought up here.
Ed, is any of the artwork that's placed in the city right-of-way, was there any permissions granted? I don't know. Was there any permissions granted from those, I don't know who would, that's jurisdiction, that would be a Board of Works or anything like that?
Yeah, it just depends on...
Like, for instance, the ballards, those are going to be wrapped, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And I'm just genuinely asking, was there permission given by any other board or commission in the city.
No, not to my knowledge, specifically on the bollards.
Okay. And I think that's definitely something that we need to then be somehow involved in, because otherwise there's no
Oversight.
oversight at all from anybody in the city to have anything, and we're not defining art. In the UDO, it is determined, there is a time limit on temporary signage. So do you know what that, I don't know what that time is.
Yeah, I mean, it just
I'd
depends.
put
It
you on
can
the
be pretty
spot.
restrictive, just depending on, what the signage is being used for. Like, for instance, banners for a business. So say a business opens up and they don't have their permanent signage yet. Or for that matter, if there's a special event that somebody wants to advertise. You get a permit for 30 days. It has to be installed a certain way. And then you can get an extension for another 30 days.
Okay.
So you can get 60 days total on, a temporary sign, is the way it's defined in the ordinance. To be quite frank, the ordinance doesn't address temporary art. I hear what you're saying about what temporary is. I think, that may be something that we need to take a look at and how other communities deal with it. But,
Sure.
temporary art, for me, has a longer expiration date than a temporary sign.
Agreed.
I think
Have to agree.
I think you can relate temporary art installations to, a time of the year or
So,
a season. Or whatever the case
On
is.
Mass Ave, there's the Dancing Lady, that is a lit sign, looks like a construction sign. Is there anybody, at one time it's a construction sign, now it's a permanent structure. But it was listed as a temporary art for many years. So, I mean, I guess, there still has to be some type of definition of time.
Yep, I agree. Yep. Yeah, we're not talking about years here, we're talking about, months.
When I think of art in the community, I think of kind of two qualifiers for how long we allow that art to be there, and that's, does it stand the test of time? Does it stand the weather? And does it add to the community in a positive way? And so I would be open to, if possible, evaluating each application on a case-by-case basis and not necessarily having a hard and fast, 90 days, 6 months, whatever timeline, duration. That, as long as, like the Dancing Lady, as long as the community likes it, and
Sure.
as long as it adds to the community and it stands the test of time and it looks, nice, then we continue to enjoy it.
And even the tiger statues, the one that's downtown, that is essentially a permanent piece of art, and that, I didn't think about that until just now, but that's, when we did the downtown revitalization, and this commission approved the hardscape, that was, we had to approve that before it could move forward. And so, again, trying to define, I'm not against Tiger, I love the Tigers. I'm just saying, is that now hardscape, is that permanent, is that temporary? And how do we define that within the district?
When I think of temporary too, I think more in terms of if it's affixed to a structure and how difficult and time-consuming it would be to remove that.
I agree, but I think that echoing my point on the Tiger, so the Tiger then would be considered temporary, but yet it's been there for years.
Yeah.
Well, will be years.
We were told at the library that the tigers were permanent. And I mean, I was for it. Like, I thought it was a cute idea, especially the kids doing scavenger hunts
Sure.
and things like that. But I see like where we're at with like, what are the permanent things we're keeping downtown and elsewhere in town versus what are the things that need to be switched out seasonally? And I agree with what Scott said. I don't like the idea of having a hard and fast, you have 30 to 45 days to keep this up, when some things might be seasonal or like weather appropriate. I think one of the best examples I can think of is Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It's one of my favorite towns to visit. Take my kids down there probably at least once a year. And depending on the season we're there, they're known for these they're either like snowmen or they're like scarecrows, and they're they're semi-permanent, I would say. They have to be some sort of like a hard, I mean, my 7-year-old crawls all over them and they don't fall over. So there's some sort of like a cement or hard plaster or something. They switch them out seasonally. In the spring, there's like Easter bunnies, and it's fun to look at, and like the whole town is themed to that season. And some things change, some things we look for every year. There's always something new with their artwork, and I think they do a really good job of keeping their town true to what it is, that kind of mountain lodgy, folksy escape, but still adding that color and vibrancy and fun things to look forward to, fun things to look at with your kids or as a family. And I think that's what I think of when I think of downtown art, is something that is for a season, old favorites that come back, new things to look at. And so I don't like being locked into super hard and fast rules, some loose guidelines, absolutely. But I like the idea of having a case by case. Let's hear what they want to do. Let's see how long they want to have it out for, and really be open to some change and some really good things.
And I don't disagree with your points. I would just challenge to that would put more responsibility on the board that way, and because if you're doing it by a case-by-case basis versus, which I'm not opposed to, just so we're all clear, if we're doing it on a case-by-case basis, that does potentially eliminates the option for staff approving that, which then could delay unnecessarily an applicant to put up art. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If we have to do it that way. Whereas if we have some type of definition where they say, for instance, if someone wanted to put up a temporary art display for a weekend or a week, if we said if it's underneath this certain amount, that staff can approve it. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
So then if we have something that's,
Extremely temporary.
So like something that's going to be up for longer than 30 to 45 days, then maybe that's when it needs to come before more of like this body, for example, versus like something that's going to be like, hey, we just want to have this up for Back to the 50s weekend.
yeah, I think then that gives, oversight, since that's going to appear permanent, especially from outside visitors. It appears permanent in the district. Not that these are not set in stone rules. I think this is, you're going to take, I'm assuming, our comments back and look at what communities have done as well. But it seems like that 30-day range, anything over a 30-day range, am I misspeaking, Commission? Anything over a 30-day range would come before the Commission?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so.
I mean, and to be fair, we do meet every month in theory. I think people
Sure.
are planning out. If you're wanting to put a semi-permanent art display, I think you have it in mind way more in advance than to be able to not to be able to get on our schedule in time. And I swear I know what I'm trying to say. Like, I think if you're planning to do a permanent art display or semi-permanent art display, you're going to think ahead and give yourself some time to go through all the appropriate channels. Does that make
Agreed.
sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. What are some things we're maybe missing or not considering, in Derek?
I know these are all good comments, and as you mentioned, Casey, I'm going to take these comments, digest them, do a little bit more research, and to see if I can find a, process that's worth copying, and present those to you all to see what your feelings are. For me, or for staff, whoever that is, whether it's me or whoever follows me down the road, I think a staff report for art is going to look a whole lot different than a staff report for a, facade project.
Sure.
Sure.
And specifically, why I say that is because in the name of time, it takes a while to put together a staff report for a facade project. And to go into that much detail about artwork, I don't think that's necessarily required for a staff report. I think the idea is probably pretty general, and then the applicant, does most of the speaking for that project. So that would be one thing, just off the top of my head, that I think would be a little bit different from the typical staff reports that you see from me. It's going to be much more stripped down for temporary art than it would be for a facade project.
I would expect it to be,
I would, I think I think it'd make it harder if it was longer. But I think we also should consider, though, one thing I didn't even consider until you mentioned it, was the types of installation. If we're attaching a banner to the building, are we screwing into the building or anchoring it to the building, and how is it anchored? All of those things are critically important to the longevity of our buildings in our portfolio. So, those different adhesion or anchoring points could be a good topic of discussion for the applicant when they're coming in, for instance, of a banner. And then I just want to make sure that we have some type of process, regardless of who the applicant is, to have permission from the city, whether it comes from our board or some type of, the Board of Works, I guess, is who the body would be. Otherwise, we have no control over that, over who is putting up art. Because you can't define art.
No.
No, and there's no easy way to say, well, if it's on a 12 by 8 canvas, well, then it's art, but if it's 11 by 7, then it's not. It's just,
Yeah, no,
it's
you're
not
right.
possible.
You have to, I can tell you from my experience in the planning office for the last 15 years, you have to be careful on the regulations that you set up. You have to ask yourself, are they enforceable or are they not? You can have all these great ideas, but unless it's enforceable, it's not worth having it on paper. So they have to be realistic. They have to be, something that isn't going to necessarily hinder people from accomplishing what they want to accomplish in a reasonable type of way. For example, this is way off topic, but one of the presentations I made many moons ago was for a used car dealership, and the argument became, well, we're only going to allow them to have 50 cars on their lot. So anything over 50 cars is a violation. And my comment was, well, who's going to go out and count how many cars are on this used car lot? And who's going to police that? Who has time to police that? Contrary to belief, us in the planning office, we don't sit around there and twiddle our thumbs, specifically for me, for having to have an HPC application come in. I'm dealing with HPC, I'm dealing with floodplain, I'm dealing with, sidewalk installation, trail installation. We're all doing that. Christy answers the phone. She makes permits. She schedules inspections. So, my point is, it has to fit within the capabilities of the administrators in the office who are handling these things as well.
And I don't think we need to make anybody jump through a crazy amount of hoops, be it in your office or the people trying to beautify the downtown. I think we just need some rough guidelines, and I think for me, it's more an interest in seeing, what the project is going to be, what it's going to look like, how long they want to have it up, if it's something that it's going to work. I think I'm more from a curiosity and want to make sure it flows with the downtown, but I don't think anybody should have to jump through a lot of hoops to make our downtown more beautiful.
No, I think we could make it a streamlined application process of a single page or 2-page at best that just says, the general contact information, who's responsible for it, what it's going to be, what materials it'll be under. Because one thing that we had very bad luck with the butterflies. I thought they were so cute in the tree, and then we had like the worst windstorm come through, and the butterflies flew. But that was a real shame. But kind of think of that same vein. If we recognize that, hey, this material may not be the best option, similar to what we did with the pinwheels, we discussed the longevity of those pinwheels, so an art project doesn't turn around to be an eyesore to the community. And I think on that part, we have to look at it objectively and not looking at judging somebody's art, but judging maybe the material or the substrate that it's on. And I think we have to be very cautious about that, but that's something that we should be very conscious about, is to make sure that it's at just like we do for the windows, like we did tonight. We wouldn't have approved of vinyl because it's a substandard quality for a commercial structure. We need to make sure that whatever is being used isn't going to negatively impact, which I don't believe would be the case.
Yeah, you think there's gonna be a learning curve to that as well. I mean, the butterflies in the trees seemed like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Obviously, it wasn't a material that was gonna withstand, Indiana Springs. And, I will certainly give the Heart of Lebanon, credit. They're very aware of, the quality of what's going on in the district. And I think, Missy will check that one off the box and say, okay, we know that's not gonna last. That probably wasn't a good idea. So I hope every organization is as mindful as the Heart of Lebanon is. Obviously, they have a vested interest in our downtown. But that's, it'll be a trial and error type of thing for a little while until we, can get a list of things that, have done in the past that worked, that didn't work, and some will be failures and some won't.
Okay, any other discussion points on that topic? I think those are great points, Derek. Would you like us to do any homework to follow up with you? Are you going to follow up with us?
In between the cracks, I'll start putting some stuff together. I don't know that you'll see anything maybe by June, hopefully by July. We can start to get some rough drafts put together and make sure that we're ready to roll for 23. And, with those applications that start to come through. So. We'll work through the process and get it right.
Last thing then, I don't know if we need to just make this a discussion or a motion, but then in the case of between now and when we have a finalized document, how would this commission like to proceed with similar installations, if any, to come before? We wanted to have them come through like they did with the pinwheels to come forward with, was that an application? I know they came here, but did they do a CoA application for that? Okay. Do we think that's the best? I don't know if we really can go any other way, because I don't know if we have any other approval process.
Unless they make like a temporary artwork approval process.
Well, I think that's what we're in.
Yeah, until they do that.
Okay, so we'll just continue going with a COA request until if in the event that it would happen before we have this temporary art approval. All right, any other discussion or any other business to come before the commission? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much.